Raul Padamsi's Ace Productions presents Shabana Azmi in Broken Images. Written by Girish Karnad. Directed by Alec Padamsi.
फोटोग्राफ्स बस बस बहुत हो गया थैंक यू नाइस वेरी नाइस रजा क्या बात है वाह बट वेयर इज द कैमरा हाँ ओह हियर इट इज न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी isn't it scary the rate of obsolescence? Of course I have, in London and in New York. But when you think of Indian television studios, you always imagine them scurried, lots of people shouting orders. But here it's all, kya kehte hain use? Spartan. All right. I just look into the camera, pretend there's an invisible audience in front of me directly. Yeah, I can hear you. Huh? Voice testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello. Shall I tap on the mic? My speech will last exactly 6 minutes. I have timed it. Huh? No, I won't read. Look ahead and speak. But that might take a little longer. Just a couple of minutes if I don't fumble too much. Yellow light? Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a proud moment for all of us at Edge TV channel. For we have with us in the studio renowned Hindi short story writer Miss Manjula Sharma. What many of you may not know that until a year ago, Miss Sharma was a lecturer in English. It's amazing how many of our Hindi writers have also been lecturers in English. From the earliest days, we have Shri Harivansh Rai Bachchan, V.D.N. Sahi, Ram Vilas Sharma, to the more modern Bhisham Sahani and Firaq Gorakhpuri. All of them competent in both languages, Hindi and English. About a year ago, Miss Manjula Sharma stunned the entire literary world by writing her first novel in English. The River Has No Memories. The novel went on to be an international bestseller, and the advance she received from the British publishers made headlines worldwide. This evening, we telecast a Hindi telefilm based on this remarkable novel. We are proud to have in the studio with us Miss Manjula Sharma herself, who has graciously agreed to address our viewers about her work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the literary phenomenon of the decade, Miss Manjula Sharma.
Namaskar. I'm Manjula Sharma. I must mention that officially I'm Mrs. Manjula Tiwari, but my creative self continues to be Manjula Sharma. There are some areas in which we must not let marriage intrude too much. Talking about one's work is a very difficult task, so let me just take up 2 questions I constantly come across. First question, you've probably guessed it already. After having written in Hindi all your life, why did you choose suddenly to write in English? Do you see yourself as a Hindi writer or an English writer? What audience do you write for? And variations on that theme. Actually, let me confess, if I had foreseen how many people I would upset by writing in English, I really would not have committed that folly. Intellectuals whom I respected, writers who were gurus to me, friends who I thought would pat me on my back and share my delight, they're all suddenly breathing fire. Majal kaise hui? How dare she write in English and betray Hindi? Betray? The answer is simple. I wrote the book in English because it burst out in English. It surprised even me. I couldn't understand why it was coming out in English, but it did. That's all. There is no other explanation. What baffles me, actually, let me confess, hurts me, is why our intellectuals can't grasp this simple fact. I have been accused of writing for foreign audiences, accused as though I'd committed a crime. But a writer seeks audiences where she or he can find them. My British publisher said to me, "We like your book because it is so Indian. We receive any number of manuscripts from India, but they're all written with the Western reader in view. Your novel has the genuine Indian feel." Ab bolo. But who listens here? Koi sunta hai kya? Recently, the president of the Central Sahitya Academy, who shall remain nameless, declared that Indians who write in English do so in order to make money. He, of course, spoke in English. Speaking in English, as you know, gives you the authority to make oracular pronouncements about English literature and language. Let's face it. What is at issue here is not creativity, but money. What hits everyone in the eye is the amount of money a writer in English can earn. The advance I received for my novel, just the advance, mind you, helped me resign my job and concentrate on writing. Bura to lagega? Of course, it's a cause for jealousy. Having struggled in Hindi, I can understand that. A Hindi proverb says, a response is good, but a meaningful response is better. Meaningful, arthapurna. The Hindi word for meaning is arth, which also means money. And of course, fame, publicity, glamour, power. Let me leave it at that. The second question everyone asks is about the book itself, thank God. How can you seem so strong and active. I used to be a long jump athlete in college, though of course, no Anju Bobby George. How can you so vividly recreate the emotional world of a person confined to bed all her life? How can a healthy outdoor woman be so empathetic to the inner world of a disabled person? Well, it is sad, but I owe that to my younger sister Malini. She was physically challenged, suffered from what is called meningomyelocele. The upper part of her body was perfectly normal. Below the waist, her nervous system was damaged, completely dysfunctional. A series of operations which started soon after her birth reduced her existence to misery. She spent her entire life confined to the wheelchair. 6 years ago, my parents died, and she came to live with us in Kamla Nagar, and I nursed her. During the last few months, it was quite clear she didn't have much time left. I am childless, and she became my child. Truly, this book is about her. I have dedicated it to her memory. She died last year, just a few months before the book came out. I have tried to relive what I learned about her emotional world as I nursed her, tended to her, watched helplessly as she floated into death. I miss her. I miss my beautiful, gentle sister. She's the only character taken from life. The rest of the characters and the plot is entirely fictional, totally invented. There is one person whose support I must acknowledge here. My husband, Pramod Tiwari. I was working as a full-time lecturer then. College chores and home was full of her memories. And there was I suddenly writing in English, floundering, sinking. I was utterly clueless. There were moments when I broke down, when I felt I just couldn't go on. But he was always there by my side, encouraging me, prodding me on. Without him, I really could not have completed the novel. Thank you, Pramodji. Well, that is it. I have committed the cardinal sin of writing in English. There is no prayaschit for it, no absolution, but fortunately, the film you're about to see is in Hindi, which makes me very happy. After all, I'm a Hindi writer myself. Born to the civilization and proud of it, मुझे अपनी भाषा, अपनी संस्कृति पे गर्व है. The Hindi reality I conceived in English has been translated back into Hindi to perfection by the director. I could not have done a better job. My thanks to the cast and crew and of course Edge TV. Well, enjoy the telefilm. Namaskar. Good night. I hope that was all right. I didn't fumble too much. Did I, Raza? Thank you. The pleasure is entirely mine. I'll see you outside in just a bit. Okay? Yes, sure. Good. That will fix them. I've taken enough nonsense from them. Where are you going? You can't go yet, Manjula. Oh God, am I still on? You're not. The camera is off. Then, how? You were standing up. If the camera were on, I'd be standing up too. I'm not. Is this some kind of a trick? Hello? Hello, Raza? ये क्या हो रहा है? How come I'm still on the screen? Is there a technical hitch? Raza? No hitch. Then how? Who are you? How? Has the tape got stuck? Help! Help, Raza! कहाँ हो आप? What are you screaming for? What are you afraid of? It's only me. Who are you? Me? You? That's absurd. Quite. A good speech, I must say. An excellent performance. The viewers loved it. All 2 million of them. But the film? Hasn't it started? Oh, what happened to the film? Oh, screw the film. It's awful anyway. Is it? I told them it won't work. A telefilm needs lots of movements, different locations, pace, action, drama. A good novel doesn't necessarily make a good film, I argued. But they were persistent. Sponsors were easy to find. They paid well. Your performance now, this introduction, it was the best thing this evening. You'll be all over the papers. You've managed to upset a lot of people. Thanks. I meant to. If one had to comment, in the extreme case that one had to, that bit about your sister Malini, the tears, that could have been played down a bit. I wasn't pretending. I loved her. I love her still. I don't think I've been as close to anyone else. It was a close bond. Very. The novel doesn't really do her justice. She was attractive, more attractive than me. Intelligent, more intelligent than me. And vivacious, which I never was. I accepted that. She radiated life from the wheelchair to which she was confined. I've always been reconciled to being second best. Her illness was unfortunate. But because of it, she got the best of everything. She never asked for anything. Soon after her birth, the moment the gravity of her situation was realized, my parents left Kanpur, moved to Delhi, took a house in Gurgaon. She became, क्या कहते हैं उसे, the apple of their eye. When she was old enough to go to school, a teacher came home to teach her English and mathematics. बाकी सब उसने खुद ही पढ़ा. Everything else she read up for herself. History, philosophy, anatomy. She was hungry, क्या कहते हैं, hungry for life. Gobbled it all up. खा जाती थी. And you? I've often wondered whether I would have been as bright had I received all that love. No, you wouldn't. Let's face it. I did write a bestseller. That's true. But you're right. I wouldn't. They left me with grandparents in Kanpur. An affectionate couple. They fussed over me, but no substitute for parents. When vacations approached, I could barely wait to get to Delhi. And once I finished college, I found a job in Delhi and came and lived with them. Those were the happiest days of my life. But then I met Pramod. We got married and settled down in Kamla Nagar. Father helped with the house. Bapuji ne madad to ki, but he left most of his money in her name. For her care, she was always the focus. Naturally. But when your parents died, why didn't you move into the Gurgaon house? Such a nice big house, the garden, the sense of space. The Kamla Nagar house was my house. I was used to it. My college was in Kamla Nagar. We had selected a house which was within walking distance. Gurgaon would have meant a long trip every morning. And then such a huge house, not easy to look after. I would have had to stay home all day, like mother. Give up my job, probably. No. Like I said, Malini was one of the most sensitive people I'd come across. She realized moving to Gurgaon would turn my life upside down. She insisted we sell the Gurgaon house. I was reluctant, but she wouldn't listen. She wanted no sacrifices on her behalf, no compromises. And she adjusted beautifully to the smaller house. To tell you the truth, I couldn't stand Gurgaon. Punjabis, most of them. And of course, all those empty houses bought as investments by NRIs. I fancied myself a Hindi writer those days, wanted to breathe the language, live in the heart of UP's culture. Now that you're a success in English, have you bought a big bungalow in Gurgaon? Shut up. Was Malini at home in Hindi? Of course. It was our mother tongue. But she never used it. Her Hindi was limited to the cook and the maid. So, Hindi was the one area that became yours. I suppose so. I tried to occupy it and make it mine. कुछ तो हो जो मेरा अपना हो. Actually, I've never said it publicly. But if you believe that a novel written in English cannot express the truth about India because we do not express ourselves in English, Bapre, what a sentence. But if you believe that, I will say, I could not have written about my sister in Hindi. She laughed, breathed, dreamt in English. Her friends spoke only English. Having her in my house for 6 years helped improve my English. So, when are you going to write your next novel? Will it also be in English? I think I've already answered that question. Why need I write another novel? Surely one is more than enough, critically and financially. But then what are you going to do? You've resigned your job, you're rich. Not rich, just well-to-do. Well-to-do. You have no sister to look after, an empty house, nothing you can use. Are you trying to make me feel guilty? Are you implying I used her? It was my life as well, you know. I'm in the book too, although I would never admit to it publicly. Most readers find the girl's first cousin quite unattractive. Eeks? That odious creature? Is that you? Well, there you are. A triumph of objective self-analysis, should we say. If you must. But I'm not that wicked, really. It was a narrative necessity to have a negative character, a matter of technique. The sympathetic heroine, the villainous counterpoint. That's all. But Pramod must be pleased with your treatment of his character. He comes across as not very striking or good looking. But not bad looking either, good enough for me. But a warm, intelligent, lovable person. Fun loving, fond of practical jokes, noble and simple. Almost simple minded. You can say that again. We met soon after I moved to Delhi. It was quite bizarre, actually. I had a friend called Lucy, a close friend. We worked in the same college. She taught French. She and I used to have our lunch together in this cafeteria every day. One day, the place was jam-packed. There was only one tiny table empty in a corner with this young man occupying it. He sat there, lost in a book. So, we picked up 2 chairs and went and introduced ourselves. He practically fell off the chair. Then throughout the lunch, he sat there staring sideways at us, blushing to the gills. That's how it started. With the 3 of us having lunch together in this cafeteria every day. He turned out to be one of those whiz kids working in the software office next door. He would come every day before the rush started, sit at the table, plunge deep in his thick book, but waiting for us. You could sense that in his tense posture. And when we arrived, pretended to look surprised and then barely spoke. We teased him endlessly. He laughed and was quite tickled by our attention. He seemed quite unused to women, really. Then one day he did something completely unexpected. He was attracted to me, but didn't know how to convey it. So he wrote a letter to Lucy about me and wrote me a letter about Lucy. Then he mailed her letter in an envelope addressed to me and vice versa. So I received this letter addressed to Lucy, moaning and groaning about how I had tortured him. And I didn't even know he was attracted to me. And Lucy, of course, received the other letter. He thought he was being absolutely smart, totally original. We went and confronted him. Lucy tore her letter into shreds, flung the pieces on him, and walked off melodramatically. I felt sorry for him. I said, idiot. Every 15-year-old tries that trick, convinced it's never been done before. But you got married, so the ruse worked. No ruse. He'd made such a fool of himself. He did the only thing he could to save his self-respect. He married me. And I have to confess, I didn't mind at all. Mind? You would never have found another person of his caliber? I suppose so. And what happened to Lucy? She stopped talking to me. Women found him attractive. Malini too. Of course. She was a woman, after all. They were close to each other. Very. You must realize, Malini wasn't exposed to men. There was Bapuji, not given to expressing much affection, and male teachers who floated in and out. Pramod entered her life like a storm and stayed center stage. He was, in fact, the only man in her life. And you didn't mind? Mind. Thank God for it. You see, he's in software development, works from home, and she was confined to the wheelchair. Can you imagine what would have happened if the 2 of them hadn't gotten on? He is basically a 2-woman man. I used to call him Kishan Kanhaiya. But Pramod must be proud of you. That flattering portrayal of him in the novel, the moving acknowledgement in your speech today. I doubt if he will even have heard of my speech. Why? Is there a problem? Who are you, for God's sake? Huh? Who are you? What gives you the right to interrogate me like this about my private life? Either you are me, in which case you know everything, or else you are an electronic image, externally primed, in which case I really think you need to mind your own business. Go down. I'm going. Don't go. Please. Sit down. Go on. So, go on. Aren't you going to talk to me? Come on. Listen, I'm sorry I'm getting on your nerves. But you could say I'm getting on my own nerves if I had any. But I'm not here by choice. I don't know how I got here. All I know is that I'm here, imprisoned, if you like, in this television frame, literally boxed, my existential situation, my angst. And I am here to talk to you. So, please cooperate. There was a time when critics would have said, I'm your conscience. Like in the good old Hindi films, the hero reaches out for the money. Suddenly, his shadow starts speaking. Don't. That money is meant for your father's medicine. Do you want to break your mother's heart? Or it could be his image in the mirror. But those simple days are gone. Today, I would have to be your Freudian unconscious. Everything you censored. Repressed material. Forbidden impulses. Taboo recollections. Dreams. A bad dream. Actually, I could be an interpretation of a bad dream. Sorry about that. Look, you asked who I am. Does anyone ever know who one is? It's the ultimate question, isn't it? Where do I come from? Where am I going? Hamlet started it all. To be or not to be. You are the English literature person. You should know. No use asking me. We could go back to Narcissus, of course. He loved his image, which is more than can be said about you. So, say something. Sorry. You are now an author of international standing. So perhaps we should describe me in more Indian terms. Myths, folklores, oral tales passed on by grandmothers. Indian archetypes. Sita. Yes, take Sita. According to the other, there was a Mayavi Sita, an illusory Sita. According to some versions of the Ramayana, it was the illusory Sita that Ravan carried off. Then in later sections of the epic, Ram replaces the absent Sita with a golden image. It seems as though the men in the Ramayana never got to the real Sita. I'm trying to keep myself entertained. One must do something after all. If you're looking for entertainment, you can do better than be in a television studio. Think about it. Isn't it fortunate that I am your image and therefore outside you? I could be inside you, part of a multiple personality syndrome. Then we both would be struggling inside your body, trying to push each other down, attempting to be mutually exclusive. We would never get a chance to talk to each other, like now. So say something. I've exhausted all my arguments. I'm exhausted. I'm nothing if you don't say anything. So, what do you want to know? What happened to you? You said, Pramod may never hear of your excellent speech this evening, and I only asked why, and you just exploded. He's in the States now. Oh. When did he go? Last year. He lives in Los Angeles now. Last year? So, has he even read the novel? Hey, the launching of the novel was a major media event in the US. After all, you must remember, it had proved to be a super hit in Britain. They called me all the way to New York for the release. There was much fanfare. he sent me an email of congratulations from Los Angeles. Apologized that he couldn't get
you didn't
leave
go
to
to
attend.
LA?
Will you believe it? He didn't so much as mention it. Sorry, but the chronology of events is beginning to confuse me. When did he go to LA? Was it after Malini's death? Yes. Immediately after? No, but soon after. How soon after? Okay, let me explain. The offer from the American company had been pending for a while, even when Malini was alive. In fact, she became quite agitated when it came. Although, of course, she was also happy. I knew. He too was dragging his feet because of her. We knew she was dying. Then she died. Then I wrote the novel and sent it to a literary agent in Britain. Within a couple of weeks, we received an email from the agent accepting the novel for publication, mentioning the advance. That did it. Everything fell apart.
Really? What happened?
I suppose it was to be expected. Until that moment, I was essentially dependent on him. Emotionally, financially. He was the quiet breadwinner, the more successful partner, the pillar of the family. Suddenly, the rave response, the enormous advance, I had achieved a status he did not care for.
So?
His behavior took an odd turn. मुझे बहुत सारे invitations आने लगे, to public events, cultural functions, literary conferences, and so on. He hadn't attended these events before, he didn't now, which was fine. But one day, Lucy called. You remember my friend Lucy of the mixed up letters? Bless her. I knew she was still unmarried and living on her own. She hadn't talked to me since that episode. She rang. Pramod had begun inviting her out in the evenings to dinner at expensive restaurants.
Were they having an affair?
No. I knew he wouldn't even make a pass at her. In fact, I wish he had had a full-fledged affair with her, with anyone, in fact, that might have eased the tension in the house. But he just isn't the roaming type. Too much a creature of habit.
What did they talk about? Did he complain against you?
Lucy said he didn't so much as mention me.
So?
He cracked jokes.
He did what?
He cracked jokes. Of course, he talked of other things, but everything was honed to delivering the jokes he had carefully selected, polished, tabulated, and fitted into the larger narrative.
Not smutty jokes then?
No, that's just not like him. Jokes about his work, about information technology, about Bill Gates, Wipro, Infosys, cyber jokes. And she said he was hilarious, had her in stitches. She enjoyed the evenings enormously. It was his inexhaustible gaiety that worried her. Did he tell me jokes too? She wanted to know. I said no. Maybe in the early days of marriage, but not anymore. So she said, if it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me. But if you don't mind, I would like to continue with the evenings. So please don't question him. That was the last time I heard from her. Then he opened a new office for himself away from home. I had resigned my job, you see. We were both home all the time. People dropped in to see me now, which upset him, or he couldn't stand them. He started making remarks about the woodworks they had crawled out of, which annoyed me. His complaints multiplied. The maid didn't clean his office properly enough, or she was too thorough and he couldn't find anything he needed. The quality of food at home was deteriorating. Then one day he asked whether he could re-employ the nurse.
The nurse?
Yes. The one who had attended to Malini. Can she just come and go once a day, he asked. I was taken aback. Why? I said, Malini is dead and neither of us is ill. He stared at his toes and left the room without replying. I don't know if he had the nurse visit him in his new office. Missed Malini. So the collapse of your marriage may have nothing to do with your literary success. It was her. There was something insidious.
You can't blame her. You almost willed it.
How do you mean?
You let her take over your home. You were out all day.
I was a
You
working
didn't have
woman.
much time
I
for the
wasn't
home
out
or the-
gallivanting.
You were more and more, rather less and less, a part of the home scene. The cook would come and go. The maid would come and go. The nurse similarly. So Malini and Pramod were left alone together virtually all day. And she was pretty.
Very. With a soft skin, almost translucent, never exposed to sun or wind. Most people in her situation would have grown fat, obese, developed diabetes. I'm told many kill the boredom of confinement by gorging and so put on weight. She never did. She was never bored. She remained alert and supple and
A young,
clothed.
shapely body. Small but firm breasts. When you bathed or changed her, you must have compared her body with your own.
Whenever I sponged her, it was always she who looked away.
Perhaps she couldn't bear the look in your eyes.
Was I jealous? Of course not. She was paralyzed below the waist. There was no question of any physical intimacy.
Intimacy can mean anything two people agree to.
All right, it bothered me. Shall we say it was that irritation that produced the novel? What went on between them? Even if it was just words, what words? I tried various experiments. If I turned the key noisily enough in the main door and then entered, sure enough, I would find him at his desk, studious, a picture of concentration. And she would be deep into her book at her laptop, but never so absorbed that she couldn't give me that warm, winsome smile. If I surprised them by entering silently, animated conversation would suddenly come to a stop, a guilty pause. Then she picks up the exact note effortlessly, including me too in their talk. It was always her. He was never good at subterfuge.
But what did they talk about? After all, 6 years. They couldn't have been declaring love all the time.
One day I came home early. A furious battle was raging. I eavesdropped. They were squabbling like a married couple. It was about ethics. He was arguing that any system of ethics demanded a single universal principle that bound everybody together without exception. She was horrified by this. Different human situations call upon different principles on which to act. Ethical demands are ethical because they're contradictory, she said. She found a universal principle inhuman. They were shouting on top of their heads. He said Hinduism knew real ethics. She called Immanuel Kant a fascist, but it was also impersonal, abstruse, innocuous, that I stepped in. They saw me. A sudden look of guilty horror on their faces, as though I'd caught them making love. Silence. Then she picks up again, asks my opinion. What did I think? I couldn't repeat the experiment too often, of course. They knew my timings. There were occasions when I felt, this isn't my home. I'm an intruder here. Someone external to the soul of this house, like the cook, the maid. Did Pramod come to your bed willingly? Almost too willingly. After all, he was not But the film must be halfway by now. What happened to the commercial break? I was told advertisers were queuing in. We can't be kept locked in here forever. You were talking about your bed. There were moments when I wondered whether he was fantasizing having Malini instead of me in bed with him. And she, no doubt, lay listening, beyond earshot, imagining the two of you together. It was painful. There was no end in sight, no absolution. Critics have commented on the sensually charged atmosphere of the novel. You found the perfect objective correlative for it. It sold the book, but you have to keep denying that the plot was from life. By the way, did Malini know you were writing a book on her? How could she? I hadn't even thought of it when she was alive. Have a heart. I was a working woman. English literature. At home there was Malini, completely dependent, and a typically Indian husband, caring but useless. Where was the time? Besides, you need distance, emotion recollected, etc. But once you found tranquility, you must have written at a tremendous pace. It poured out. It was one way of making up for her absence. She died. Within a couple of weeks of her death, you sent the script to your literary agent. 350 pages worth of printed material in 2 weeks? I worked my fingers to the bone. A gigantic task, worthy of the Guinness Book of World Records. Do you know that the publishers of the Guinness Book say they received the largest number of applications from India? We are a nation that aspires to be a world record holder in world record holding. What are you burbling? Are you being willfully obtuse or plain stupid and nasty? All those jibes, hints, innuendos? But 150,000 words in 2 weeks? 10,000 words a day? It wasn't inspiration. It was a cataract of words, a deluge not met since Noah's Ark. All right. I didn't write the novel. She did. She wrote it. Every single word of it. Oh, God. Once her health began to collapse, about 18 months before the end, she began hammering away at her laptop. I knew she was writing something, but I had no time for it. After her death, I found the typescript in her drawer. I read it. It was decimated. You knew that as a writer you could never dream of such heights. The passion, the clarity, the insight, the total control. It was a work of genius. Bilkul. I looked up a directory of agents in the British Council and mailed the typescript to them. I didn't even know they'd respond. Then it happened. What? I tried to explain to Pramod, but he would have none of it. He was unforgiving. About stealing the book? I did not steal the book. See, Malini liked to sign herself M. Sharma. My letter accompanying the typescript was signed Manjula Sharma. The agent obviously thought we were the same person. His reply arrived at Pramod's email address. We shared a computer, you see. Pramod printed off a copy of the reply and left it for me at the kitchen table. As I picked up the email, I could sense him watching me from his corner. I decided to face him. How can you accuse me of plagiarism, I wanted to ask. Are you implying I knowingly stole my sister's work? कि मैंने जानबूझ के चुराया है? I knew he would deny any such insinuation, but I was waiting to plunge into him, to wring the truth out of him. Why don't you say what's on your mind? I wanted to go on. You know it was a genuine mistake. The agent is an Englishman, unfamiliar with Indian names. Instead, I heard myself asking, why did you leave the message at the kitchen table? He looked nonplussed. And it wasn't what I meant to ask, but I had to plunge on. You know I have a desk of my own, a study in which I work. Oh, I'm sorry, he said. Went to the kitchen table, picked up the message, went into the study and slammed it on the desk. Here it is, the message. That was it. He pretended he didn't know what I was getting at, but he did know. I could sense it in his anger. He had never before been so angry. Not with me. The subject was never mentioned again. Then what happened? We lived, encompassed and died. The last real communication between us. The last moment of privacy was when he had asked whether we can employ the nurse. I had replied with a flippant why. But as we looked at each other, for a moment only, the room had suddenly filled with her sweat and phlegm, with the medicines, perfumes, disinfectants. And this was weeks after she had died. Before long, the press got wind of the deal and invaded our home. The enormous advance, the rave reviews, the literary tours. It was too late. Wait a bit. The plot is a little too neat, don't you agree? All that spiel about the literary agent confusing Malini with Manjula. Such melodrama. Sounds like one of your Hindi short stories. Go on. After her death, I looked for her papers in her drawer. I couldn't find them. I dashed to Pramod's office, riffled through his papers. There it was, the typescript. Not even a floppy that you might miss or not recognize. She had printed off the entire novel and arranged the pages carefully. It lay there hidden in his drawer, or so he thought. He was never good at concealment. He didn't even know I'd filched the typescript until the email arrived from the agent. I read the typescript. You were decimated. It was brilliant, a masterpiece. It was venomous. I was camouflaged as a first cousin, not sister. But it was me, all right. And the portrayal was rancorous. I was a shallow person, a pretentious mediocrity, a gushy, conniving, devious relative who had taken her in for her inheritance. But there were no adjectives, only facts. The events were from life. They were accurately described. The conversations were recorded verbatim. I could not deny them. Perhaps that's why Pramod had hidden the script. Or perhaps they shared it together, laughed and exchanged notes. Perhaps he was not simple at all. She had brought out an aspect of him I had never suspected. She could not possibly have imagined her work would see the light of day. So either it was meant to be read by me or to be shared between them. She despised me, Perhaps they both did. Perhaps she had turned him against me. In that moment I knew I hated the cripple. I'd always hated her. I was just waiting for her to die.
She recognized the truth all along.
And she was right. Once again. For 6 years from her wheelchair, my sister had watched me, stalked me in every move, and then pinned me down in coruscating prose. From beyond the funeral pyre, she was challenging me to burn the script. If I succumbed, I'd stand condemned in my own eyes for destroying a masterpiece.
And if you published it, everyone would know who the first cousin was. You'd become a laughing stock. Worse still, you would go down in history as a footnote in the life of a brilliant author, hanging by an insignificant asterisk. Malini had nicely crucified you.
I had to do something she could not possibly have anticipated. I had to solve all problems in one go. I had to survive. And this time, I had an advantage. She was dead, and I was not. I published the novel in my name. I won!
Perhaps she did win in the end.
How do you mean?
If she wanted to prove to you that you were a fraud, she certainly succeeded. Malini Sharma, the English novelist. Manjula Sharma, my sister, the Hindi short story writer, was decimated the moment she read my novel. She thus obliterated all differences of ink and blood and language between us. And at one fell stroke, morphed into me. Of course, I shall continue with the name of Manjula Sharma. However, in truth, I am Malini Sharma, my genius of a sister, who loved my husband and knew Hindi and wrote in English.